Rump Chapter 22, Part 2. All three sisters looked down and were filled with unspoken grief. Was the merchant's trade fair? I asked. Hattle blew through her lips like a horse. Fair? That man swindled her to pieces. When he came and demanded that what had been made of his straw, of course he was delighted. And what's more, Anna had no power to demand a fair bargain. That's what happens when you get greedy with the magic. You lose control. The merchant gave her a sack of grain for her pile of gold, declaring that it was a fair trade, for without his straw she would have had nothing to spin. I shivered, remembering the first time I had traded with the miller, and how my tongue had swelled in my mouth, and I mechanically accepted his bargain. I didn't understand then what it all meant. I remember that day, Ida said. I was small, but I remember her nearly fainting as she held that sack of grain. Her face, she looked as though she had seen death. You'd think she would have stopped there, said the Hattle, but no, she was determined to be the greediest wench there ever was. Hattle, you mustn't speak of our sister. She only thought to remedy her mistake, said Ida. Yes, well, it didn't work, did it? I felt as if all my past troubles were being laid out before me. And troubles I knew well, and I was waiting, hoping to tell them for them to tell me the solution. What happened? Bathilda's eyes glistened with tears. She fumbled with her knitting and brought it closer to her face, as if her work would have kept her emotions at bay. She didn't believe she had lost control because of the magic. She claimed it was because of the merchant giving her the straw. She spun more gold, this time for her own straw, thinking she could negotiate the terms of the trade, but she couldn't. She took that gold thread to the markets and sold it for a pittance. People always start a bargain ridiculously low, and Anna had no power to refuse or suggest a price. Whenever they offered, she had to take, and the gold was theirs. I knew that feeling. I was blind to it at first, but with Opal, I recalled the powerlessness. I felt at not being able to suggest a trade or even refuse one. I thought, admirable. Then the merchant returned, growled Hattle. Yes, that was truly the worst part, said Bathilda. He returned with a wagon full of straw for Anna to spin, Ida said. I remember that. So much straw, and I knew what he wanted. I knew it. The merchant was sounding a lot like the miller. Anna refused, said Bathilda, but the merchant told her he was on his way to the kingdom, and he was certain that King Hubertus, the ruler at the time, would be interested to know of Anna's great skill. It was a threat she couldn't live with. Anna was so fiercely independent, and she knew that any king would want to use her skill for his own gain. So she spun the gold for the merchant once more, and for payment he gave her a brand new spinning wheel, so she might spin for him on more occasions. Rumple, said Hattle. She was locked in a rumple then. Her voice was so soft I almost didn't hear it. What? She was locked in what? Rumple. That's what we call our own work sometimes. It means wrapped or trapped in magic. We wrap our work in magic. Only your mother did it to herself. She spun herself in magic so tight it killed her. Oh, Hattle, that's ridiculous, said Ida. A person can't be trapped in a rumple. I'm sure Anna didn't spin again once she left. She probably died in childbirth. She died right after I was born, I said. See? You think that, Ida? If it gives you comfort. But I say once more, you've become unbalanced in the magic. Rumple grabs you and spins you fast and tight, so that it's impossible to get out. It suffocates you. She was never free of it, no matter what she died from. A rumple never lets go. Hattle fixed her crooked gaze on me until a chill ran up my neck and through my bones. Then what happened? I asked. She knew the merchant would never leave her alone, said Bathilda. So she ran away that very afternoon. She told no one where she was going, and she took nothing with her but the wheel from the merchant. I begged her not to go, said Ida, as she wiped tears from her eyes. I ran down the room, crying for her. I waited outside for days for her to return. Oh, I'd like to wrap my threads around that merchant's fat, greedy neck. She twisted threads in her hand. The last we heard was that she had married a man far away, and she died shortly after of illness. We never knew that she had a son. They kept talking, but their words faded from me. Rumple. Was that my mother, what my mother had named me? Because she was trapped in the magic, and she knew I would be, too? It made sense to me, but it didn't bring me any comfort. I didn't feel like more of a person, smarter or bigger, like as I had always hoped. I felt smaller and more alone than ever. Come on, Robert, you must be exhausted. Ida pulled me to my feet and led me back to the kitchen. Here we are, nice and cozy. In a corner near the hearth, there was a little bed made of a pile of straw and 2 blankets woven with blue and green wool. I stared at the straw and shivered. Ida frowned and bit her lip. My sisters and I share a bed. I'm sorry we don't have another. I thought you would be most comfortable here. Oh, I said, forcing a smile. I didn't want to seem ungrateful. It's wonderful, really. Straw is so warm. Ida stared at me for a moment. She had been so kind and excited when I came, but now I could see the wariness in her eyes, too. Good night, Robert. She left me with only the last glows of the coals for the night. Every part of me was exhausted as I slumped down in the straw bed and closed my eyes. I was too tired to think. The only thing I had in my mind as I drifted off to sleep was the drumming of a single word, over and over. Rumple, rumple, rumple.